Well, welcome back, friends. Prepared Suburbanite here. Got a recent comment on a video, and it goes like this. Doomsday preppers is the single worst thing ever to happen to the preparedness movement. The show was produced by lefties, and its #1 mission was to ostracize preppers, and it worked. Since that show came out, I've gone from being looked upon as a responsible person to being looked at as a tinfoil hat wearing crazy. I wonder if preppers in that show actually existed, or were they just fictional characters? Most are over-the-top loonies that make us all look bad. And you know, my friend, kinda crazy, not crazy at all. Stick around, I've got some thoughts on the philosophy of being prepared. You know, you really don't need to have an SHTF event or the end of the world as we know it kind of an event to be prepared. I believe, and always have believed, that being prepared at any particular point in time for whatever you think may happen is being a responsible citizen. Obviously, some people think that we're crazy. My friend in that quote in his comment was spot on. Nothing crazy about that. I truly think that doomsday preppers, and I've watched a number of the episodes and find it extraordinarily difficult to really believe what I was looking at. Those aren't real preppers. Those are extremists. I think real preppers, people that are really prepared, think about issues and think about what happens, what can happen to them, and try to prepare so that they can weather whatever storm there may be. And I'm taking a lesson from a farmer, an American dairy farmer that I know that lives way up north in Pennsylvania. I knew the family, have known that family for a number of years. The father, a number of years ago, was raising 2 boys on the farm, taught him everything he knew. Those boys today are very successful dairy farmers. And here's what he taught them. He taught them to be successful as a dairy farmer, you've got to be a mechanic, you've got to be an electrician, you've got to be a plumber, you've got to be a carpenter, you got to be a lumberjack, you got to be a welder. You got to be a jack of all trades and master of some. He was resourceful. The old man was very resourceful. When the boys got old enough that they were thinking about, okay, it's time, I'm 18 now, time to quit living at home and do my own thing, guess what the father did? It's amazing. He went out to the woods, refurbished an old sawmill that had been sitting out there for God knows how many years, put a new roof on the shed building for it, lubed up the old sawmill, sharpened up the blades, went out into the woods, started cutting lumber, cutting trees down for lumber, sawing them up, and guess what he did? He built houses for his 2 sons. As they came of age, they could leave the original family farmhouse and move into their own houses right on the 300 or 400 acre farm that they had there in northern Pennsylvania. That was just what you did. Today, at least one of the boys is still farming that place, doing a terrific job of getting, of making some good money, investing properly, keeping the property up to date, doing a great job, and he knows how to do all those basic skills. That's what I'm talking about being resourceful. That's what I'm talking about being prepared. is possessing the skills, learning the skills, applying the skills so that you can weather whatever storm you need. My wife grew up in a large family. They never had a whole lot of money, but they were close to the earth. They had cows, they had horses, they had chickens, they raised rabbits. They did all kinds of stuff like that to make sure that they could weather whatever storm came their way. Her dad was a machinist and truck driver, worked in a factory probably 40 miles away from home and drove back and forth every day to get that job and get that job taken care of. He supplied what the family needed. That farm, and they had about 300 acres, that farm sustained them through all kinds of trials and tribulations. There were times when they just didn't seem to have enough money to even pay the taxes on the place, and something would happen positive. Lumber company would come around and say, hey, we'd like to harvest the ash trees out of your back forest there, and we'll pay you good money for your timber. So they'd let the local lumber company come in, cut down a few ash trees, give them a check for a few $1,000s, pays the taxes. That's the kind of stuff that being prepared and being resourceful is really all about. So the same commenter, who calls himself kind of crazy, and thanks for the comments, they're really, really good. Here's the second comment that he popped up. Prepping's just insurance. You pay for health insurance, but nobody laughs at you. You pay for auto insurance, nobody laughs at you. You pay for life insurance, nobody laughs at you. You spend a little money each week on extra food or water in case something happens, like a war, natural disaster, illness, job loss, and you're considered part of the lunatic fringe. I believe anyone who doesn't prep is missing the point. That's an excellent philosophy, and that's really what the philosophy of prepping is all about. It's insurance. We planted a small garden this year, and we do every year and have for the last 6-7 years. Probably got a dozen, maybe 14 tomato plants out there. Got cherry tomatoes up on the deck, but those are just for munching on. But the production tomatoes, and you know, a dozen to 14, 15 plants out there. We've already, and it's the middle of July, we've already canned 32 quarts of tomatoes. Now, we're going to make, out of that, we're going to make spaghetti sauce, pizza sauce, regular tomato sauce, maybe even some tomato juice. We've already put up, I think, a half a dozen pints of tomato salsa. That's going to get us through quite a rough period of time should we happen to need to get through a rough period of time. It's little things like that that a lot of folks don't really even consider when they think about being prepared, because they think about the doomsday prepper. And the doomsday prepper, guy's wearing army fatigues and all kinds of weird stuff like that, and he's out practicing stuff in the woods and blowing up cars and doing safety drills in his house, and some of that kind of stuff is important. You got to know how to protect your property. You got to know how to make sure your family's going to be safe in case there's a fire. But to take it to the extreme that they did on that show, way too much. Prepping can be a very simple part of anyone's lifestyle. You just buy a few extra things every week. A couple extra cans of tomatoes, a couple extra cans of green beans, or some flour, and put it up, save it, rice and beans and things like that, so that you've got a store that can get you through if in the event that we're exposed to a natural disaster where supermarkets can't function and we can't run to the store every 10 minutes. That's the kind of stuff that a real prepper does. And I think there's a lot of people that do prep that don't even think that they're preppers. But that's the way they live their lives. They've always got an extra bar of soap. They've always got an extra couple of cans of this, a couple of cans of that, or enough food in their freezer to get them through 4 to 6 weeks of who knows what can happen. So that's the kind of prepping that I think we all need to really take a good hard look at. Another aspect of being prepared is doing preventive maintenance. My wife and I have just spent quite a few bucks here and there making sure that a lot of the preventive maintenance that we could handle has been taken care of here around the place. I change the oil regularly. I clean the air filters regularly on all my motorized vehicles. The lawnmower, my Jeep, those kinds of things, just to make sure that that kind of preventive maintenance is being done. Chainsaws and anything that's gas powered and gas operated. We hired a local electrician to come in and replace basically the entire circuit panel box that we had. This house that we've got is about almost 40 years old now. It may be 38 years old. So it's almost 40 years old. It was the original electric panel box. It was there. It had breakers. That was good. But the breakers started to break. And because they did, stuff wouldn't turn back on. You could go click, 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 and the breakers were just worn out. Didn't cost very much. He was a very talented local electrician. Got the job done, in and out of here in a day. That was really, really well worth it. We had a deck out back that was really starting to function structurally inadequate for us. When I'd be sitting out there on that deck and my 50-pound dog would walk by, I could feel the whole thing shake like that. And I said, it's time. So we contracted with a local carpenter who came in, tore the old deck off. We put up a new deck. And it's structurally sound. It's built to code. That's the kind of preventive stuff that I think is very, very important that we all have to engage in as part of the prepping plan that we've got, even for our own homestead, for our own home and family. So you've got your food, you got your water, you got your shelter, and you've got to do preventive maintenance on pretty much everything that you own. You got to take care of it because you've made an investment in a lot of that stuff. It's very important that you do take care of it. Responsibility and accountability. I guess that's really the bottom line. That should be the core philosophy for your prepping plan. It's really simple. Be responsible for yourself. Be responsible for your family. Hold yourself accountable to the standards that you set and the standards that you and your family expect of each other. That's really, really the core philosophy for prepping. I wanted to leave you with a closing thought. Surfing around, we had the Jeep in for some maintenance on the Jeep, and sitting there in the waiting room waiting for the Jeep to come back out. And it was actually a warranty repair. There's a switch or something in the airbags that can fail, especially in hot, humid kind of conditions like we have here in North Carolina, where it's been brutally hot and brutally humid for the last couple of weeks. But anyway, we got a notice from FCA, Fiat Chrysler, and took the Jeep in yesterday. So I'm sitting in the waiting room waiting for the Jeep to get done, and clicked on CNN on my iPhone and saw an article that was entitled, "Trump Makes 13 False Statement in Cabinet Meeting." It was written by a guy named Daniel Dale. Works obviously for CNN. So opened up the article and I started skimming down through it and said, well, pick one out and let me read it and see what the perspective is. And here's the one that just at random I picked out of the 13 false claims that Trump made during this particular cabinet meeting earlier this week. Subtitled, Democrats and Borders. Here's what Trump said. We're doing very well, but we will have no help whatsoever from the Democrats. Just the opposite. They want open borders. They obviously don't mind crime and drugs and human trafficking, which is a tremendous problem. So here are the facts according to Daniel Dale. Some Democrats, including presidential candidates such as Elizabeth Warren and Julian Castro, have advocated a significant loosening of immigration law, including decriminalization of the act of illegally crossing the border. So, obviously, the Democrats are doing something here. They're decriminalizing illegal activity. And Trump gets accused of making a false statement saying that the Democrats aren't doing anything. Well, yeah, they are doing something, but it's exactly the opposite of what they should be doing. This is the Prepared Suburbanite reminding you to pay attention, keep calm, keep cool, and I'll see you all on the next video.